On September 7, 1972, less than 48 hours after Palestinian terrorists had killed 11 Israeli athletes in an attack forever known as the Munich Massacre, a group of unknown American athletes walked onto an Olympic team handball court to face a powerful squad from Spain. The two teams were competing in the consolation rounds, a chance to claim 13th place among the 16 teams who had played each other the previous 9 days. And the game was expected to be an easy victory for the Spanish, who had ranked in the top 10 going into the games, a testament to their lifelong pursuit of the sport. The Americans, almost exclusively guys from the Army, had never even heard of team handball just 2 years before. In the fall of 1970, they were just like anyone else their age, doing their best to stay out of Vietnam.
I was actually playing basketball for the Army at Fort Sam Houston, and it was all luck. There were 6 forts in the 5th Army, but the headquarters was at Fort Sam Houston. So the guy picked an athlete from Fort Sam Houston, and for whatever reason I went.
I was at the Adelphi gym, and I was just playing a pickup game of basketball, and this Hungarian guy comes up. He goes, "What you doing this Friday night?" I said, "Oh, I don't know." He goes, "You come down, I teach you handball."
And I had just gotten out of basic, and I'd never heard of team handball. I had no idea. But you know, when you're in the Army and they say, well, why don't you go here, why don't you go there, instead of, you know, staying in the Army and doing Army things. And I said, oh yeah, okay.
They were a group of guys thrown together by fate and the whims of William Westmoreland, young Americans of a certain generation, looking for a way to express their athletic skills while avoiding service in an unpopular war. They were suddenly introduced to this strange sport called handball, or team handball, as it is forced to be called in the States, a game the guys had never even heard of before, let alone played. In great military fashion, they were told to learn it, practice it, and perhaps play it in the Olympics. If anyone refused this strange offer, or if they were cut from the team along the way, all bets were off. Good luck staying out of Vietnam.
I was trained as a forward observer, artillery, so that's the guy that's out in front calling in the shots. And I was trained and ready to go to Vietnam, and had the opportunity to go to the All-Army basketball camp. At the end of the training camp, he gave me a all-night ticket, midnight ticket to Georgia. And so I showed up and had no idea what it was about, not a clue, except that I heard that it looked like water polo, only basketball players could excel at it.
I went to the commanding general of the fort, and I told him that I had an opportunity to try out at a session of 80 or 90 guys to see what my skill set was to maybe play in this game. And he told me, he said, well, that's fine and dandy, but if the team doesn't make it to Munich, because you have qualifications, you have to build your skill set, and then you have to have qualifications. If you don't make that, then your next voyage is across the pond to Vietnam. So there was a significant incentive to do well.
At the helm of this movable locker room was a man named Peter Buning, the president of the United States Team Handball Federation, the coach of the team, and the father of the sport in America. In the summer of 1969, Peter had managed to score a meeting at the Pentagon with Westmoreland, a 4-star general at the time, out of which came the Army Champs program, a step-by-step operation to identify worthy candidates for the prospective Olympic qualifying team. Westmoreland desperately needed a PR victory, something to show a skeptical public that his army was more than just a collection of warmongers, a prevailing thought at the time. Buning needed access to quality athletes, and the Army had them in abundance. Ex-college basketball players mainly, who found themselves in the Army at a bad time. Making the team presented the fellas with a 2-year detour around Vietnam, but it also presented a strange new feeling to a bunch of successful college jocks. Losing.
The first few trips, these club teams, and these guys had come out and they were small and they were all out of shape, but they knew how to play, and we'd walk on the court and go, finally we're going to win something, but we wouldn't. So we got it handed to us. But we learned a lot, and every trip we got better and better and better, and we were becoming a lot more of a unit too.
So the whole thing was a progression of getting better, losing all the time, but always feeling as if, so what, we lost, we're going to go out there the next day, we're going to play just as hard, and we're going to eventually get better. Because we were a group of really good athletes, and not only were we good athletes, but everybody had an athletic intellect. We understood the game, we understood what had to be done.
For the Army champs, everything hinged on emerging victorious at the Pan American qualifications held in Elkhart, Indiana in February 1972. Their game with Mexico was routine, Argentina much tougher, but their primary competition was Canada, a team the boys knew well.
It was a bloodbath, not literally, but I mean, it was always a very physical game, and we always played them tough, and they always played us really tough too. So for us to beat them was a big deal. And of course, then we qualified for the Olympics, and that was a big deal.
Overnight, our lives changed because all of a sudden, Department of Army treated us like, we're going to protect you guys, we're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure that you go to the finest installation to train, where you're going to have meals on a regular basis. We're not going to be eating out of fast food joints anymore.
I remember our general, who was in charge of Department of Army sports. He was a 2-star general under Westmoreland, and he was there, and he came into the locker room, and he came into the shower where we were, and I saw the guy. Now, I'm a lieutenant. I went running over, grabbed him, and pulled him into the shower. So here's a general hanging out, excited about us having gotten there.
For me, it was just the greatest feeling, because now I was an Olympian. Something I'd never dreamed of in my life. I was a good basketball player, but I wasn't that good. So to become an Olympian in a sport like team handball that nobody knows anything about, and to know that that was your goal for 2 years, was really, really a good feeling of accomplishment. And I think all the guys felt the same way. We had a big party after that game. It was good stuff.
Continuous trips to Europe to play the best club and national teams helped prepare them for the tough competition that loomed ahead in Munich. Beating Canada was one thing. Beating the best in the world, which is who they would have to face in the Olympics, was quite another.
And we practiced a lot, and 7 or 8 of us lived in a little 3-bedroom house in Jersey, and that was interesting. But we were together, and we practiced every day, which is what we needed to get better.
We spent 2 weeks with Romania just before Munich, just before the games, and so we trained with them. They were the world champions, and once after that 2 weeks, I felt like we could play with anybody in the world. Maybe not beat them, but we could play on the same floor and be competitive.
Soon they found themselves in Munich and marching into the opening ceremonies. Memories that are still fresh and vivid.
And it was an overwhelming emotional moment walking into that stadium in Munich, because the corridor leading into the stadium seemed forever long, and then the cameras were right as we started in, and then the United States, the national anthem was playing as we came into the facility, and yes, everyone was crying.
They had the doves, wink, wink. They were all pigeons, is what they were. So they let the doves go, and people that had been in the Olympics prior had maybe been, this was their second games or whatever. All of a sudden they pull out newspapers and they go like this, and we're going, what are they doing? Well, all the pigeons were just, going all over the place, and we had these double knit white blazers on, and guys are getting plopped on the side with pigeon poop, and that was pretty funny, really.
Sadly, Palestinian terrorists blew up those smiles when they invaded the Olympic Village to take 11 Israeli athletes hostage in a failed extortion attempt that would be forever known as the Munich Massacre. The boys of '72 had a front row seat on the unfolding drama.
I remember when it happened, and I think it was JR and Rico and I walked over, and there was a knoll that looked down on, there was a picture that I still have of the guy with a machine gun on the second story guarding the door where the captives were being held. And I can't believe they let us get this close. We were on a knoll, and I mean, you could see the guy's face. We couldn't have been 60, 70 yards away.
Laszlo and Sándor and Eli, they're all Hungarian. So we were good friends with the Hungarian team because, just the way it was. They lived next door to the Israeli athletes. So it was 4:30 or 5 in the morning, all the pounding on our door. All of a sudden the Hungarians showed up. So after a few minutes, then the guys started to tell us what was going on. That really, that changed the complexion for a lot of people.
Less than 48 hours later, amid the terror and the anguish, the Army champs were soon to achieve their greatest victory and the greatest in the history of the sport in America. 3 opening round defeats had left them reeling and disappointed, even though they performed notably against the eventual gold medal winner.
The best game what we played against Yugoslavia, who was who won the Olympic Games. And halftime it was 10-8. And I remember that 9-8, we shot a goal post and they went a break, and that's how it becomes 10-8. So we really scared a couple of teams, very, very good European teams.
But when the boys began play at the Olympia Hall, they pulled together as never before to beat mighty Spain. The team that had never even heard of the sport just 2 years before had pulled off an upset for the ages, 22-20. Suddenly, their freestyle run-and-gun offense was the talk of the tournament.
And that's when I think the handball world kind of sat back and said, what's going on here? Here's a group of guys that were over here a year ago getting beat up by second and third division club teams, and they just beat one of the top 10 teams in the world. Very surprising, because we got ahead, we got up on them, and we were able to sustain it, which wasn't something that we necessarily were able to do very often, to sustain a lead. You could get a lead, but sometimes it's hard to keep it when you've got experienced players like we're playing against, at that level. Great win for us. Our first Olympic victory. And honestly, I felt like it was a gold medal afterwards. I walked off that court with, just a tremendous feeling of accomplishment.
Perhaps that sense of accomplishment is what keeps the guys together after all these years. Perhaps it's the memories of losses and victories, of fast food dinners in cramped apartments, of opening ceremonies and terrorist attacks. Whatever it is, they keep finding their way back to each other. A couple of the guys, like goalie Eli Edis and backcourt player Matt Matthews, have passed away, but most see each other regularly, some even gathering annually in Las Vegas for March Madness with their kids. A recent reunion found them in Rico's backyard, Portland, Oregon, to commemorate another opening ceremony, this time in Rio.
I love these guys. I don't have a brother because my brother, he died in Hungary from alcoholism. And, they were my brothers, really, and especially Kevin.
It was a tough time as far as the 70s, being in the Army, everyone hated you. It was just ridiculous, really. And most of us were college graduates, and so I think we hung together because of that.
As I look at Rick Abrahamson, Roger Baker, and Vinny DiCalagero, and Kevin Serapiti and others, you look at the quality of the character And these guys were absolutely passionate about the game and about success, and it carried over in their lives.
How many trips we went to Europe, and how many different teams you play, and how many bus rides, and how many dinners you go to, and celebrations after the game. It's just it's the memories that keep you together, and wanting to get back and visit, see your buddies.
The story of the Army champs didn't end in a gold medal, or any medal for that matter. Officially, they placed 14th out of 16 teams, not an achievement that drew much attention at the time. Only now can we truly appreciate them as a sports team and as a collection of military heroes set against the backdrop of an unpopular war. These are the Army champs, and their story is about to become both a historical novel and a documentary film. Army champs, how a four-star general and a German engineer ordered up America's first Olympic handball team. Screening and reading by 2019.